Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Go ahead and grab a metaphorical cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and let's just have some real talk about your agency's growth. If you are an agency owner right now, whether you're completely flying solo or maybe you're managing a growing team, you already know scaling is tough. But what if I told you that the invisible ceiling you keep smashing your head against, it actually has nothing to do with your marketing skills? Literally zero. It is entirely about how you price your services. So today, I'm going to step in as your senior mentor. We are going to map out exactly how your pricing models absolutely have to evolve as your agency scales up from a one-person shop all the way to an enterprise-level operation. Okay, let's just dive right into this.
I want to ask you a question. Are you working twice as hard right now, but your bank account is definitely not reflecting all that hustle? Does that feel a little too familiar? You're putting in way more hours, your client list is technically growing, but the revenue just flatlines. Well, here is the secret that most agency owners, frankly, learn the hard way. The pricing model you choose dictates absolutely everything. It shapes your cash flow predictability, it limits your scalability, and it controls your profit margins. Yet when you look at industry data, it turns out most agencies pick their pricing models completely by accident. Think about it. The first client asked to pay hourly, so you did that. The second wanted a project rate, the third asked for a retainer, and suddenly, boom, you're running 4 totally different models across a dozen clients and your internal operations are just collapsing under the administrative weight. It's a mess. So it's time to fix that by picking the right model for your specific stage of growth. Section 1, Escaping the Hourly Trap.
Now, this is the pricing model almost every solo founder starts with, but unfortunately, it's also the one they stay stuck on for way too long. When we look at industry data from Credo, it shows that solo practices and smaller agencies are heavily clustered in the lowest hourly rate bands, often well under $100 an hour. Meanwhile, the larger agencies are consistently commanding those top-tier rates. The reality is, when you are small, staying on an hourly model actually suppresses your rates. Clients will push back so much harder on an hourly rate increase than they ever would on a flat retainer. Because think about it, hourly billing strictly caps your income based on the hours you physically have available in a day. Once your calendar is fully booked, your only lever left is to raise your hourly rate. And as a small shop, that is a massive uphill battle. Plus, honestly, even worse, hourly billing actively punishes you for being efficient. As you get better and faster at your job, you literally earn less money. Crazy, right? So here is the crucial breaking point: $10,000 a month. The data strongly suggests that you absolutely must transition off that hourly treadmill before you hit 10 grand a month in revenue. If you try to push past that point, hourly billing just puts a hard cap on your ceiling and makes it nearly impossible to build a scalable team. It is totally fine for some quick consulting or maybe initial audits, but man, it is a terrible engine for long-term agency growth.
Let's move on to Section 2, Retainers, the growth engine.
For agencies that are leveling up, moving from that $50,000 mark up towards $1 million in annual revenue, retainers are exactly where you need to live. In fact, 78% of digital agencies right now use retainer-based pricing as their primary model. And there is one very simple, incredibly powerful reason why: the average client lifespan. Retainer clients will stick around for an average of 56 months. Compare that to just 24 months for project-based clients. Just think about what that means for your day-to-day business. Constantly going out to sell and win a brand new client is incredibly expensive, not to mention exhausting. My core philosophy for you today is that long-term client lifespans matter infinitely more than short-term project wins. Retainers are what give you that predictable monthly revenue, which is exactly what lets you hire confidently, forecast your cash flow, and actually sleep at night. But listen, as a business owner, you really have to understand risk allocation. Every pricing model basically shifts the risk between you and the client. So with monthly retainers, the agency takes on what we call scope risk. If the work magically grows beyond what you initially agreed to because the client keeps asking for just one more post or one more quick meeting, and you don't charge for it, you eat that cost completely. On the flip side, with performance bonuses, the agency takes on market risk. That means you are totally at the mercy of platform algorithms, sudden tracking loss, or just random market volatility. If their sales dip through literally no fault of your own, well, your income dips too. Understanding this risk split is absolutely vital when you're figuring out how to contract with different types of clients. Here is a super practical framework I always share with mentees. You really shouldn't just offer the exact same model to every single business type. It's a matching game.
If you're working with small to medium businesses, they crave budget predictability, right? So a straight monthly retainer is usually a perfect fit. But look at B2B SaaS or direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands. These guys are obsessed with ROI. For them, a hybrid model, meaning a base retainer plus a performance bonus tied to something like demos or return on ad spend, is ideal because it shares the risk. And finally, when you scale all the way up to enterprise clients, you usually swing right back to a pure retainer. Why? Because enterprise procurement departments really like predictable, tightly budgeted costs. So just remember to match the model to the client's mindset.
All right, Section 3, protecting your profit margins.
You can have the absolutely perfect pricing model on paper and still let hidden operational killers totally destroy your profitability. It's actually kind of crazy how quietly software can eat your agency alive. Let's talk tool costs. A lot of the really popular social media management tools out there charge per seat. So imagine you have a 6-person agency and you're managing a dozen retainer clients. Those per seat fees, they can easily cost you around $1,500 every single month. Now compare that to using flat rate tools, where your total cost might only be, say, $159 a month. I know that difference might seem super small when it's just you starting out, but as you grow, just ignoring those tool costs can quietly eat up to 10% of your total retainer profitability. It's wild. You absolutely must protect your margins by forecasting those software expenses before you scale your headcount.
And speaking of protecting margins, scope creep. It is the absolute fastest way to kill a profitable retainer. You have to enforce your boundaries. First, you need to document your exact deliverables in writing, right there in the statement of work. Second, clearly define your overage rates, like say $75 for an extra social post. Please, whatever you do, do not just silently deliver extra work hoping the client is going to notice and appreciate it. Spoiler alert, they will not value what they are getting for free. So when a client asks for extra work outside of the scope, just use this exact script. Say, happy to do that. Here is the overage rate per the SOW. Seriously, confidently charging overage fees from day one actually builds massive client respect instead of damaging it. It shows them you are running a real professional business.
Moving right along to Section 4, scaling with hybrid pricing. Okay, so once your retainers are highly profitable and your boundaries are rock solid, you are ready for the big leagues. When you start crossing that $1 million mark, specifically working with performance-focused clients, you need to shift into a different gear. According to industry estimates, 28% of top agencies are now using this hybrid structure. It's basically the fastest growing pricing model in the agency world today, and there's a good reason for that. Pure performance pricing, where you only get paid if you actually get results, is incredibly rare. It only accounts for about 1% of agency revenue, simply because it is way too risky for the agency. Hybrid pricing steps in and solves that exact problem. The secret sauce here is what we call the hybrid formula. It combines a base retainer with an outcome bonus. It's brilliant. The base retainer covers all your basic operational delivery costs, your publishing time, community management, your baseline reporting. It acts as this incredibly safe floor that entirely prevents your agency's cash flow from collapsing if you happen to have a slow month. Then, right on top of that, you layer an outcome bonus based on hitting specific KPIs, like qualified leads or total revenue. This is great because it perfectly aligns your agency's incentives with the client's success. When they win big, you win big. But you are never, ever at risk of missing payroll.
Which brings us to Section 5, mastering the model switch.
Obviously, evolving your agency means that eventually you are going to have to upgrade your legacy clients over to these new models. So, how do we elevate our contracts without sacrificing all that hard-earned client trust? Well, here is your transition playbook. The very first rule: how do you handle a mid-engagement model switch? Answer: you don't. You literally never switch models mid-contract unless the scope materially changes. Doing that just damages trust and, honestly, it kind of signals desperation. Instead, be patient. Wait for a natural break, like a 90-day review or maybe an annual renewal. Now, if you are pitching a hybrid performance bonus, make sure you have at least 12 months of baseline data so you actually know what's achievable. Finally, framing is everything here. If you're moving a client from an hourly rate to a retainer, frame it as a massive benefit for them. You can tell them, hey, a retainer covers your ongoing scope at a predictable monthly fee, and it's going to save you so much administrative overhead. You want to make the switch feel like a premium upgrade to their experience, not just a bump to your bank account.
And while we are on the topic of renewals, please remember this critical industry standard. Agencies that haven't raised their rates in 2 or more years have literally lost 10 to 20% of their margin just to inflation and skill growth. You absolutely must be doing annual rate reviews.
Industry guidance shows that a 10 to 20% annual increase is typically accepted with zero pushback, assuming, of course, that you're delivering good results. Enforcing these standard increases actually improves your long-term client relationships. It prevents you, the agency owner, from building up this quiet resentment while also accurately reflecting the true growing value of your team's expanding skills. It's a win-win.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. I want you to ask yourself, are you pricing for the small clients you have today, or are you pricing for the enterprise agency you actually want to become tomorrow? The pricing model you are using right now is actively shaping the future size and health of your entire business. If you truly want predictable cash flow, long-term stability, and the actual ability to scale, you have to intentionally design your pricing to support that exact vision. So I challenge you, take a really hard look at your contracts this week. Stop picking your models by accident and start deliberately building that scalable agency you deserve. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I really hope you feel totally ready to go out there and reassess your pricing strategy.